Oh, this is going to be easy.
Hey guys, welcome to the High Ground Podcast. I'm Justin, joined by Chris. We are the Palawan and the Apprentice, and we call ourselves the Perfect Cast.
Hello there.
Not for any particular reason, just because we think it's a good name. But I did want to say thanks again for joining in. Obviously, this is going to be our 5th episode today, and we're going to talk about installing electronics into lightsabers. Now, I do want to remind you guys that we are sponsored by absolutely no one, but that's okay, because then we're not bought, and what we're bringing to you is just our opinions and our thoughts, our hopes and our dreams. And if you want to squash them and tell us that we're wrong, we're open for that. So as always, we're just going to remind you guys that we're not perfect, even though we do believe we're the perfect cast, and that anything that we say, it can be used against us. So please do hit it down in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. If we've said something that you think technically is wrong or morally is wrong, we want to hear about it. Just reach out. But we do appreciate you guys as an audience, and certainly this is fun for us. And so today is going to be fun for me. So what I'm going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened since the last time we had an episode. But before we do that, I just want to let you guys know that this will be very much an interview style, because I do not know how to install. That's just it. I don't. I've got some tools and some stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about it. But Chris, my main man here, he has done quite a few installs already. He's getting up to speed, starting to flirt around with maybe making some chassis or some stuff. And so getting the equipment ready for that. But the reality is, this is going to be all him. I'm going to be asking him stuff, and I'm going to be letting him kind of tell us from a newbie's perspective, just like everything else we've done so far. What's it like? And we'll tell you what we do know about installs and how to get started and stuff like that. But again, we really appreciate you, and let's get started. So, Chris, what is new since we last met?
I bought more stuff. Way more stuff. Basically.
You did buy a couple of things, I heard.
Yeah. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't, as per usual. My luck's been pretty good though, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I'll count my my eggs, my ducks,
I mean, it is what it is. I think I've had a lot of transactions. They've all gone really well. Had a couple that didn't go very well. Had one recently also that didn't go really well. So, it is what it is, but that's kind of the luck of the draw. And I think the best part, and this is what we're here for, is that we work with good people, because the person that I worked with, it didn't work out, and we're amicably figuring that out very easily. And it sounds like you had the same situation.
Yeah, I'd bought a saber, and from the previous person that had owned it, I don't know if they lived by the beach or something like that. There was a large buildup of rust, and some of the parts were basically stuck, and I didn't want to go further into investing my time and possibly messing anything up for something that I paid good money for. It just wasn't worth the risk, but the guy was really cool, and he already refunded me, and I'm sending it back to him tomorrow.
Yeah, that's really awesome, man. And so I'm so glad to hear that. So, I think pretty much, I mean, I think I told you, got my hand cut open. That's never fun, because 1, I can't play with sabers. 2, it makes it harder to go out and toss my kid up in the air, because he loves that. It's his favorite thing next to actual lightsabers. But so not a whole lot going on in my week either, but just a couple of deals, and one really great one came through, and then another one didn't. But that's what it is, man. So I guess without anything else in the way, then
just like a catch up. But
so I mean, so okay, so we call it installs, right? What is an install,
Correct.
Chris? What is that?
So an install service is provided when you take a chassis, which is basically a plastic housing for electronics, and that you insert into a lightsaber. It holds a soundboard, which is almost like your CPU, like the heart of everything. You have speakers, you have a kill switch, which could turn on and off the power to the battery. You have battery tabs, a NeoPixel connector, which is where it makes contact with your blade and creates the connection where it illuminates it.
The board sends that information right to the blade, and the board tells the blade what to do.
Yep. And I mean, that's the best way. An installation is a service that you can be provided or do yourself to essentially give your saber life and bring it into the world of Star Wars, essentially.
I mean, it's the sounds are great, right? So I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's really
I want to
cool.
swing it, go whoosh, and watch it
Yep.
light up.
I want to
So
swing it
okay.
slow and it goes slow. I swing it fast and it sounds faster, you know?
Oh man, did I tell you about the Pod Racer font? My kid loves Lightning McQueen. And the saber that I bought like months ago, I didn't know it had the
Yeah,
Pod Racer font, and it goes slow and fast when I swing it slow and fast. So I give
that's
it to
so
him.
cool.
He thinks he's watching Cars. He really thinks he's watching Cars. It's the best thing. The neurons firing in his brain when he's doing it,
Yeah,
it's great.
that's so cute.
Okay, so that's what an install is. What kind of installs can I get done?
So you could get a basic, and it could go all the way up to way more advanced type of things. I'm
So
really
what's a basic? Tell me what a basic is.
the most basic install if you were first starting out and you wanted to do something like straightforward would be a single piece chassis. So a chassis that slides into the lightsaber that is all one single piece. You're still going to be doing a lot of the same things as advanced builds, but this is a lot
Okay.
more straightforward. Every one piece chassis essentially that you're installing would follow a similar protocol unless it had something like a crystal chamber. But if we're starting out basic, it's just going to be the soundboard, a one piece chassis.
Okay.
Obviously, you're going to wire everything up, your speaker, your if you even have a kill switch,
Okay.
your
So I got
battery
so I got a
tabs,
kill switch, battery, speaker, some wiring, the soundboard. That's kind of your basic.
and then a
Then where do you?
single neopixel, like a
Okay.
stock.
Okay. So like connectors and all that stuff to make the blades go flashy flash. So
Yep.
then where do you go? What's the next install up from that?
I would say same thing, a one piece chassis, but maybe you add a kill switch for the first time, or you add a crystal chamber. It's not really getting so much more complicated, but this is going to be your first time working with something like an external light because you have to wire that up as well and learn how to program
Okay.
that. It's not hard. It's I found that when you overthink something when you're installing something, it makes it seem 1,000 times more complicated than it really needs to be. So
Okay.
you'd move up to a one piece chassis with a crystal chamber. Maybe you never did a kill switch before. Um, just in terms of like we're talking like basics, not coding or anything yet. Then you
Okay.
can move up to something like a two piece chassis. It's still very simple, but like I said, that if you tend to overthink things, the concept of it really can screw with your head, I guess you could say.
So what determines so I'm not sure if the one piece and two piece is that based on your skill as an installer or is that based on the saber that's being installed?
So I guess you could say it's a lot of sabers. You could make everything a one piece, but when
Okay.
people design these chassis, um, like let's say I did an Obi-Wan episode 3 lightsaber.
Okay.
Why you would maybe want to do it as a two piece is because the upper section has to be wired where the buttons are is going to be wired directly through the control box on the saber. And if you were to try to pull that out, it would rip the buttons out of the saber. So someone would
Okay.
do a two-piece chassis where the top is stuck in there because it's going through the control box, but you could remove the battery at least easily. The
Okay.
second section would come completely out of the bottom.
Got it. Okay, so some it would be skill because if you exercise a little bit more advanced skill, it helps you with the functionalities and the features. But some it could be dependent on the saber too because you may not be able to put one all the way through because of the size or something.
Yeah, size, control box wiring. By
Got
making
it.
it two
Control
piece, you
box.
make easier access to the battery being removed.
Oh yeah, the control box. You told me about that with the creepy uncle, right?
Yeah, the
So
creepy
like,
uncle is typically designed as a two piece as well.
okay, and that was because on that one, I think you told me that the wires go up into the control box, and you have the kill switch there, and then you got the blinky lights, and you got the switches there.
So
So
instead of
that
there
means
just being switches in there, there's also the addition of two single LEDs or RGB
yeah,
LEDs, and then you're
yeah.
also wiring two switches into that.
Okay. Okay.
So
Makes sense.
removal
Okay.
of the upper section would be ludicrous, basically.
And then I've seen like the really pretty metal stuff. Is that like the next step up from here? Is there somewhere in between, or does it just kind of like gradually go up? Like how does it work? Where do you go from the crystal chamber two piece chassis? Where do you go
You
from
could
there?
start adding stuff like OLEDs, which is an animated screen, but like I told you, it's pretty easy to install. It's just wrapping your
Okay.
mind and keeping track of everything that you're doing.
Okay.
And then I would say after that, like, you start off with basic programming, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm not the best. Like, I know what I'm doing, and I could get every function and everything I want in my saber to work. But if I start going outside of the box on Profi, I'm not 100%. You know, I haven't done a whole 1 button config yet. I haven't done 3 button configs like some people could do. Some people write their own source code and everything, and it could get really advanced with what you want it to do. For example, like
I
the
think
lights on the creepy uncle, like the ones on FET263, which is an amazing resource for anybody who's building sabers and using a Profi. Like you had a different lighting effect for the cave sequence
yeah,
on your creepy
yep.
uncle, where the arrows on the Luke lightsaber blink in different
I
fraction
didn't know
or
what that was though. Like I just told you about it, and I think I told you that Rob did it. So how did you figure out to do? Did you figure it out, or did you go to Rob? Did he help out? Like, how did that work out?
So first, you're such a nice guy, dude. You contacted Rob for me, told him what I was
Okay,
doing.
okay,
He called me crazy because this was like it was supposed to be like my second install. It didn't end up being my second install, but at that point, when I eventually came to it, I did go to FET's website, and there is a code on there for the red arrow and the green arrow for the Return of the Jedi control
okay.
box. And I did do that, but it's awesome that FET put it on there, and I think someone else wrote the code and he uploaded it. But it's very simple. There's no on and off differences. There's no variations between the blinking. But your creepy uncle, which Rob had coded, and I think he had gotten the code from John from Sabers Forever.
I think so.
It was more in tune with like what you'd actually see in the film. Faster blinking, different intervals in between blinking. And that's where you start to get into more like complicated things. I think one of the most complicated things really is coding your board when it comes to installs. You could keep it very simple, and like I don't even use Profi config. I go through Arduino and I upload all my stuff that way. Profi config's way easier because it's all in one place. But I'll do it through Arduino. I could have a full setup going without any custom blades or anything, just simple stuff in like 10 minutes with twist on, twist off, swing on.
Okay.
And then you can move up to stuff like, honestly, I think the hardest thing is just getting the Profi right, getting your coding right, getting it to do what you want to do.
But you mentioned Profi config, so that I'm guessing what you're saying is for all the basic stuff that you do on a normal saber, for a regular install, for maybe one with just a couple little things going on, like Profi config is really straightforward. The code on Arduino, like that, also that FET has attached to his website as well. That stuff is not overly complicated or difficult.
No.
But these other things, like the special features of programming the lights and making them blink at the exact right time, and both asynchronous with each other, like those kind of things start elevating the installs. They start making them more complicated. So what about materials? Is there like a type of material that when you're doing that makes it more complicated as well? So I've seen some. I had the master chassis with Thrawn Hunters, and people kept telling me how much like it cost to do that. And I got the saber secondhand, so they weren't as expensive. But like the crystals spin, like how hard and as expensive would it be to do like that? Not expensive, but how hard is it to do like that full metal chassis with spinning crystals and onboard LEDs and stuff?
So what you have to factor in is any of your more basic installs, you're going to start off, and we've talked about this before, the chassis is going to either consist of, what holds holds your electronics in. It'll be PLA plastic. Most people are making them on a 3D printer. Some people might use PLF and whatever, nylon-based extruded materials to make them. That's just before we go into like materials and stuff like that. It's going to be your basic of the basic. You could pick those up for anywhere from like $10. Some people will print them out for you to like $40, depending on if it's a more esteemed vendor. And then
so we're still talking about the difficulty though. So so I'm going to ask about the cost next, but when we're talking about difficulty, so you've done crystal chambers, you've done like some of the programming you talked about through the creepy uncle. Like where does the difficulty go from there?
From the creepy uncle, probably, honestly, your next step up would just be a master chassis. There's these things called, before I keep going, there's a thing called a hybrid, but the hybrids typically it's the same process. You just have a couple pieces of brass on there that you put a magnet on. That's not anything to do with difficulty, really.
Right.
When you move to fully metal stuff, like divinium stuff, Goth stuff like that, then you start getting
MB.
introduced in MB. Sorry, I can't believe I forgot him. But so you'll start moving into way more complicated stuff, and I've watched videos on it. I haven't had the opportunity. I do not feel like spending. I know we're not talking about price, but anywhere from for the more actually complicated stuff, like
Oh, it's
easily
thousands.
like 700 pounds to like over thousands of pounds.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm hearing this right. So it sounds like the chassis itself, the combination of how it's made and what's inside it. So crystal chamber, OLED, like certainly adding those little features can make it a little bit more challenging, but overall not extremely difficult. The chassis themselves could be one part, two part. When you start separating the pieces, it sounds like it makes it a little bit more complicated. But then hybrid chassis. Now I've seen some of Tim's. He does a lot of really awesome hybrid
They're
chassis.
great looking.
Right. I mean, they're fantastic. Like the Greeblies and the design that he does, and I've seen this guy go to like aerospace museums to get inspiration for like piping and wiring and diagrams and things like that, so that he can go put them on a chassis, make them look otherworldly, which he's excellent at. But the reality is, he also adds some different things in there, like spinning crystals sometimes and things like that. So your point is that not necessarily going to a crystal chamber chassis doesn't make it harder, but if it's a two-part crystal chamber, that would be harder. If the crystal chamber spins, that's certainly going to make it harder. If it's got special blinking, that makes it harder. So you're basically telling me that all these little things that can be added on, they just start adding into complexity, and then that's when you got to make
Yep.
sure everything syncs and works together.
Yep.
Okay.
You really got to keep track of what you're doing, how you're wiring it, stuff, your wiring diagram, which also a big resource is Frederick's website. It's not perfect, but it is an amazing resource for anybody. But
Okay. So
just the more stuff you add on, just the small things, really, is going to make it more complicated. More wire, more time, more soldering. Certain things are more sensitive. They use thinner gauge wire, and you might be using more stuff that you need to use thinner gauge wire for. So you need to be extra careful. It's just you're adding stuff up. You're starting at a base, and you're just climbing the mountain essentially.
So you talked about what the really complicated chassis builds are. Like, so some of those metal chassis, like I think some of the Myron chassis from MB, like I think those things have like hundreds of parts, right?
Yep.
It's this metal cylinder that's got all these little gates and pulleys and all these different things happening. So obviously that changes in complexity and that changes in price. But let's just talk about the install itself, right? Just give me a range. I don't want to go through each one of those categories that we just talked about, but like on a really basic, simple install versus something. Let's exclude the master chassis stuff because I think everyone that those things are thousands of dollars,
Not
and I think it's
realistic
easy.
for most people.
Yeah. All right. So then let's just talk about like what's the range for a basic install to something that's really nice but not approaching master chassis.
Your very basic install, I would say. Let's just say, are you talking about if you were to get it done by somebody, or just in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah.
parts?
Let's just say first you're doing about getting it done by somebody else.
You take it to somebody. You would typically, if it was like a single piece chassis, parts would cost anywhere between like 80 to 125 bucks alone, just for the parts that are going inside of the chassis. They'll typically charge you 20 to 40 bucks for the chassis alone, if it's a simple one. And then you're looking into anywhere from 200 to 300 for a basic in terms of labor,
Okay.
I would say.
So if we're getting the parts, right? Because the parts are kind of universal for whatever saber you're doing and the install that you're doing, right? So if we start with basics that are somewhere between 200-300, and I think I've seen advertisements, or at least I've seen posted pricing for some people that are around 400. So without going into like the higher end stuff, because like I think we've talked about the master chassis stuff, thousands of dollars. It's really crazy. So
Yeah.
what does it cost, like parts aside, because your saber is going to determine what the parts are, but like overall, like what would you say a ballpark total would be for a basic install versus one that's a medium to one that's a little more complicated?
So just for your basic install, probably, let's see, anywhere from probably like 460 to 560 before even
Okay.
having a saber. I just roughly
Okay.
estimate like probably $120 in parts, 40 bucks for the chassis, and then like $300 to $400 per labor.
Okay. So I think I've seen some people out there, obviously kind of getting their chops going. I've seen some folks, do like 200, 250. I think Cal, he offers a 250 add-on service for some of his sabers, right? So I'm guessing those are basic installs then.
Yeah, I mean, I would say off the top of my head, I wish more services were like around that price, but I don't believe that they are, to be honest with you. Most certain places start at like 300 or 350.
Yeah. I think that's good. I mean, I think the reality is that it probably makes it a little bit harder for some folks to buy better sabers because, if you buy a saber that's not already installed, then that makes it a little bit more of a challenge. The all-in-one shop isn't always the best solution either. There are a variety of reasons, but okay. You decided pretty early on that you were like, hey, I'm going to install my own stuff. Kind of tell me about like what made you make that decision? Like what got you started wanting to do that?
So in my opinion, any saber that's worth its weight to me personally does not come installed. They're more small runs, collector's items, type of things like that. Accurate as can be. I like sabers more like that, like we've discussed before. Same thing for you. Most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, no one's offering an install from the maker, especially. I actually was very interested in installing, but there's not really any resources for it that are publicly and up to date available.
Okay.
So
is that like a how-to that you were looking for?
I wouldn't even say more so how-to. It was just like anything about it. You could go through forums and stuff like that, and people might talk about it or have a wiring diagram, but there's no like. I wanted to understand what I was doing.
Okay.
There was nothing really out to help you understand. There's hour videos of people doing installs, but it's just them sitting there and
Gotcha.
wiring everything up.
Well, you've let me watch you do a little bit, and I think that's pretty cool because you're explaining kind of step by step what you're doing, but you're also telling me why, and then you're telling me like the differences between doing it one way versus another, and how some people may choose alternate paths, but what the advantages and disadvantages are. So, I mean, I kind of get that because I think that I too would like to do this. Right? I've got some tools, I've got some materials, and I'd like to do this, and so I'm glad to have you as a resource. I mean, as you're like cutting your teeth on it, I think it's really great. So,
I mean, I'd be really happy to be the person that I didn't have to you. Would be the best way to put it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna love that. So, let me just ask right off the bat because I've got a few things, but tools. What are the first set of tools you think are like absolutely imperative that someone who wants to install should have?
Okay, if you just had like, let's say, if I needed to pick like 3 must-have items that you could just work with. You need solder, you need wire strippers, and you need a good soldering iron.
Okay.
And then you obviously number 4, would be wire, which is there's a lot of options for it and thoughts throughout the community. What I use is a high voltage PTFE wire from Remington Industries. It's a bit. I know some people like to use the rubber wire, which I've used in the past when I used to make mouse cables for gaming mice, for gaming people and stuff like that, as a flexible cable, and I use the rubber cable because it's the most flexible. But I find that this wire is a bit more stable for me, and it's high heat resistant because these things aren't going to be like cooking themselves, but having it high heat resistant leads to less prone for accidents and stuff happening.
Okay, so we need wire. We need a solder gun or a solder gun, and we need solder. So we got that. What other tools? So we're talking about materials, but I'm talking about tools. So we got a solder gun. What else do you need besides a solder gun?
A wire stripper.
Okay, so you need wire strippers. That helps. Okay, because I'm not going to sit there with a knife and split my thumb open. Okay, so what else besides a wire stripper and a solder gun?
The next thing I would probably get is obviously to cut the wire. You want a decent quality. I use actually like the the model clippers that people use for like models and stuff like that. They're really sharp and they slice right through the wire easily. You don't want to be cutting it with like some crappy scissors or something like that, and it knocks the brand or the what do you call it, the braided wire apart and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I guess, am I going to just solder on my desk, or how's that going to work?
So, I mean, technically you could, because you're not really going to be, I wouldn't suggest it, but you're not going to be putting the soldering iron to anything that's going to destroy anything.
Okay.
What I would recommend is you can get cheap heat proof or like high heat resistant mats on Amazon as just like your
Okay.
beginner section. What another thing you could get is that's really helpful is that you probably should get is a good quality pair of helping hands. Will make the world
Okay.
of a difference. They almost look like little metallic, like it's like Doc Ock's arms from Spider-Man. And they can let you
Nice.
hold certain things, even small things, into place while you're working on it.
Okay.
It gives you that
So-
stability, because if you're sitting there trying to hold a soundboard that has holes the size of a sewing needle and you're trying to stick another same size object into that hole and solder it with your hand, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone's hands are even that steady.
No,
So-
I'm
Okay.
over here like,
Okay. So we talked about resources that you might find with other hobbies. You started some on your own. I know that. But then how did you learn? Was it all just self-taught? Did you have other resources? Where did you go to get some?
so the first thing I'll say
Learning.
is most people give a lot of the Saber YouTubers shit, and I get it. But there is a Saber YouTuber who primarily does installs. His name's Avery Castillo. I can't speak on terms of like his pricing or, you know, installs and stuff like that, but he is probably the only person who has released a video about a full install. It's an hour and a half. He spent all his time editing this down. He goes through every step of the process, why you're doing it, how it could be different, how he does it, why it works that way. And it is the best thing ever. It's just Avery Castillo, how to build a NeoPixel lightsaber.
Nice.
But the thing I'll tell you about that is you should use that as a basis to your knowledge, because every lightsaber is going to be different. It's going to have different things going on. You're going to have to wire things differently. You're going to have to set things up differently. But that is single-handedly the best resource that you could have. Going on to the next resource is the r/lightsabers Discord. I received a lot of help from people who've been in there for years working on sabers. And they help me essentially nail down the smaller things. If I have one little question or, you know, help with a wiring diagram or something like that. Obviously we've linked this Discord in probably every episode since the beginning. It'll be the same, and it'll be in every episode because it's a great resource and there's lots of great people in there. But that's how I learned basically everything that I know was through that video, trying to apply it to other situations that weren't quite as similar, and learning from community members, because the community really does like to help each other.
I think that in the community, definitely I've seen, we've talked about Raven before, but I've definitely seen him, you know, walk people through like some of the more difficult parts of their installs, like in group chats. And
One of the nicest guys ever.
So generous with his time, man. You just can't say enough good about the guy. And so I think that that's been great, like to see that happen. And I think you got support. I'm gonna tell everybody a little quick story, because we had just started talking, and we were talking a little bit here and there. And I think, you know, we talked about in the other episodes how we connected. But I remember one night, it was like 12:30. I saw these messages coming through in the electronics channel in Discord. I saw some pictures, and it was basically like a house burning down, and you know, just some stuff that you would expect for someone who was trying their first install. And it was you, Chris. You had gone in there and you were like, "Hey guys, I tried to start this install. I don't know what the freaking hell I did, but somebody help me out." And I saw everyone like rally to you, and we're like, "Oh yeah, hey man, I did that too, and I did this too, and I was there, and that was great." So I don't know if I ever asked you this, but what was that first saber?
So in reference to the first resource that I gave you people to look into, and this is the thing I'm going to say, I'm not an expert in any of this. And if it seems I was acting that way, like, No, not even close. I'm still learning stuff every day and getting better, and I want to be the best I can be. But continuing on from that, it was so in the Avery Castillo video, he did a KR Sabers Desert Wonder, which is made by Elf. And
Right.
that's so I went out. I already had some sabers in my collection. I got one secondhand from a good dude. I bought the chassis from Cal. I had the parts, and that's where I started from there. It was a older generation Profi, but to be honest with you, the Profi 2.2s, they're pretty close in my opinion, honestly.
Yeah.
And it was like half the price. So I was like, oh, $20? Heck yeah. So I bought that bad boy.
Okay.
The first time I really couldn't tell you. I honestly don't even remember what was wrong with it. The second time went perfectly fine. I just followed my diagram to a T. The only thing that wasn't working was my buttons, but that was my fault because I had wired button 1 to button 2 and button 2 to button 1. I swapped those after like hours of like wanting to smash my head through a wall.
Griswold of lightsaber install.
After wanting to like throw myself out of a 10-story balcony window, it was as simple as desolder this one wire, desolder this one wire, slip them in, boom, boom, everything's perfect.
Great.
So I kind of got lucky, to be honest with you, because essentially my first install was like pretty smooth and I didn't destroy anything, thankfully.
Okay. So you already took away my next question, which was going to be how did it go? And so it sounds like the second run through after you backed out of some of the first stuff was that it went really well and only the buttons were swapped and then everything was great from there.
If
now,
you want to know something funny before you keep going, I think that first install is one of my best installs. And I've had like 7 or 8 after that. And that might sound really stupid, but yeah.
Well, I mean, you did it twice.
Yeah.
So if you asked me, you know, in my life, like, am I going to be better at something I did for the first time, number 1 through 7, or if I did number 1 twice, I'd probably tell you if I got to do number 1 twice, I'd probably have done number 1 better. So it's good to hear. So what you learned was a little bit of repetition goes a long way. Know your sources and then know your external resources where you can go to get help. And that's
one of the biggest things I'll say too is I'm pretty like the way I grew up essentially, not to like getting all deep and stuff, but like, you know, like I had to do everything myself. So I'm pretty like used to like not asking anybody for help, and it's like not in my brain, but you know, we all work to be better people. I'm trying to be better at that. And I put my pride aside and asked for help, and it was the best damn thing I ever did in my life.
I mean,
don't be
good,
scared.
man.
Don't be anything. These people want to help you. There's literally people who enjoy helping you.
I mean, especially in Discord, man, there are so many people that'll jump on, and it's most of the time it's live. Like I just always see people getting live help, and I think that's really great to see. And even if you don't get live help, someone's going to come along and pick up that question, and you can always open a support ticket, and then the mods get notified, and then you know they got special mods who are electronic wizards, but okay. So, what would you say to someone today, where you were looking at Avery Castillo's video at the Desert Wanderer, thinking about buying a Desert Wanderer and all the parts so that you could mimic that install? What would you say to either yourself back then or anyone else who wanted to get started right now?
Literally just try it.
If
you want to do it, you just got to go in.
Do it. Okay.
You have to do it. Like that's the biggest thing. Their first step is just going to be doing it.
Do it.
Like I mentioned many times, take your time. Go over, use Frederick, use FET, use all your resources available, join the Discord, reference the videos that are out there, reference the people inside of the Discord if you have any questions, and don't just do things. I mean, it worked for me, luckily, but I learned my lesson. But if you have a question, no matter how stupid you think it is, you ask it, and someone will take you seriously, and someone will help you out sincerely. Raven gave me the best advice from the Discord. This is going to look really complicated, but you're more or less making it more complicated than it needs to be.
Fair enough. I think that could be said about a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for sharing all that with us, because I think the reality is that, even if you motivate one or two people out there just to get started and give it a try, myself included, I think this will be a success, and that's great. With that being said, I just want to come back and tell everyone how much we really do appreciate this. I think I said this is our 5th episode. So we started out by telling you that we had goals. And we started out by telling you that we had things that we really wanted to do with this pod in general. The high ground is supposed to be the high ground, and that's the goal for us. Is what are the good things in the hobby? What are things that we can do to help you be better, to help us be better, and what have we done, kind of to be better. So,
but I just want to thank everybody for actually listening, and if you stayed the whole time, I really appreciate you. One thing I'd like to say, probably on this channel, maybe privately, I would like to do what Avery did for me and maybe record some full process with explanations and what I was doing through the whole install process on some sabers.
Oh man, that's Docking Bay 32 written all over it, man.
And I think it would really be good for the community. So
yeah, absolutely, man. I'd love to see that. So, and I'd love to be part of that. So that's great, man. I'm glad you want to do that. I think it'd be very helpful because, again, some people see a gap and a need to fill that gap, and so I think it's great. Okay. Well, guys, thanks again. We're going to sign off. This is the high ground. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great night, guys.
I have the high ground. You were the chosen one. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you.